Hey everybody, and welcome to my garden. Today we're going to be talking about a huge plant haul I got in the mail today and dive into what the types of plants are, starting first with our perennials, talking about annuals, and then also going in depth on the tubers I also received. Let's go. Before we start with the perennials, I want to talk a little bit more about where I ordered my plants from and why I decided to do mail order. Always, I am a fan and I would love to support our local nurseries, but during this time I was having a hard time not being able to wander around the nurseries, see what plants were out there, and I did decide to go with a mail order. And this is not an ad, but I did go through and purchase a number of plants from proven winners. I had already purchased dahlia tubers through Eden Brothers and Swan Island Dahlias earlier in the year, and actually last fall, and those also came too. So I encourage everybody to call your local garden centers, see what they have in stock. A lot of them are really stepping up their social media game, so you can see what they have on Instagram or Facebook, and they're super helpful if you just have a question and need some guidance. And then if you do decide to pick something up from them, curbside service has just been awesome. So starting with the perennials that I got, other than the dahlia tubers, I started with these three, and the first two are a type of salvia, and the third is a type of echinacea. And I want to remind everybody that I am in the Pacific Northwest. I'm a zone 8B, so you may be a little bit further ahead of me or a little bit further behind me in your growing season. So just remember that and read the tags as you're going to plant always. The first one is a Proven Winners Pink Profusion Salvia, and as you guys know, I have expanded my garden beds and need a striking perennial to work through the borders. So I got a large number of these salvia to line a specific border. They're a purple and they get about 16 inches tall. They're hardy down to zone 3, which is awesome. And they tend to be compact and mounded, which is what you want. And they put on color all summer long. So I think it says late spring to early summer. Yep. And they're just always just a showstopper. And so I got a number of these for one border. The second one also is salvia, but it's a blue salvia called Wizard of Oz, which I think is it's cute. It's funny. This one also gets up to 16 inches. I should say these both take full sun. They can take some part sun as well, but don't plant them in a shady spot. Also, like the Pink Profusion, mounded, puts on a really good show late spring all the way through fall, and just a super winner in the garden. Also for a different border that I'm going to be planting up, and I think I got about 3 of these. And then the other perennial that I got is this echinacea, which is called Yellow My Darling. And I have a hard time remembering to get things that are not blue or purple. I gravitate toward those colors. So for me to get something yellow so early on, I'm very proud of myself this year. So this is a bright yellow echinacea perennial that'll come back year after year. I got 2 of these for a very specific spot. Full sun to part sun. They get about 24 inches high. So they're really good for that front border, or maybe just a step back if you want to step them back off of your salvia. That would look awesome too, because they're just one step up if you're doing more of that cottagey garden, which I do in most areas. They are, so I said 24 inches, hardy down to zone 1, which they go really far down, which is awesome. And they bloom midsummer to early fall. So again, a showy plant with great color that lasts not just a short period of time, but a very long period of time. So those are the 3 perennials, and I'm going to go get the annuals. So it's the end of April, and I don't typically go and purchase annuals this time of year, but again, since we purchased them online and we don't have the luxury of walking around our garden centers quite yet, I went ahead and purchased these specific annuals for a project that we have. We installed a few window boxes on the railings outside of our kitchen, and I plan to use the majority of these annuals, with the exception of a couple, in those window boxes, and I'll be planting those up this week or next, depending on how timing works. The first 3 plants that I have here are all of the same line within Proven Winners of the Super Bells. And the first one is called Cherry Red, the second one is called Coralina, and the third one is Yellow Chiffon. And they all have the same growing habits. They all mound, have trailing habits, and the best part of all, you do not have to deadhead them. It's amazing. It's amazing. They bloom from when you plant them to the first frost, and other than water them and fertilize them once a week, you don't have to do anything else, and they're just the best performers. So these three plants of more of the hot red, the coral color, and the yellow are going to be going into those planters with a number of other plants. I have some geraniums going in there, and then some herbs to mix in as well because it's near my herb garden right off my kitchen. The fourth annual that I have here is called Supertunia Vista Drift, and this one is not going to go in one of those window boxes because this annual spreads like crazy. And I don't mean spread like it shoots out rhizomes and comes up and is invasive. I mean that this one small little plant is going to become massive. Whereas the Super Bells are meant for containers, the Super Vistas series can be used in containers and in landscapes. Just know that you don't have to cram a bunch in for a big show. One plant will expand massively. And I think the spread on this one is something around the effect of 24 inches, but I've seen it do more than that in just some research that I've done. I only purchased one of these annuals this year because I just want to see how it works in the garden and then think about maybe where I want to put a drift of them next year. So I'll keep you guys updated on the progress for this Supertunia Vista, sorry. Also, like the Super Bells, no deadheading needed. It's awesome. The fifth annual that I wanted to talk to you about today is called a Surefire Rose Begonia, and I am a huge fan of begonias because I have a lot of areas that are some sun, some shade. I never quite know if they're part sun, part shade, what qualifies. Begonias can do good from sun to shade any way you cut it, and they are great color. So if you have under a patio near your front door or in a spot that goes in and out of shade just depending on how your trees are growing or the position of the sun, early summer, late summer, begonias are the place to go. So the Surefire Rose is more of a pinky rose begonia. They get 24 inches tall, which is taller than a lot of begonias out there today. And when they're planted in mass, they just look amazing. So I purchased about 10 of these, and I have a couple spots that I know I'm going to be putting in a drift of those begonias. I do want to show you guys though that just a normal begonia from your garden center, and I'll bring one up here. I tend to go with waxy begonias, and I have the best luck with them. So this is just a little 4-inch pot that I bought from my garden center last week, and they're one of the first annuals out of the chute that have a lot of color, that can give a lot of color to your front porch, to any patio container, and they perform all year long. So just make sure that it has a little bit of shade. It doesn't like full sun, but if you plant a few of these just around the border of a container, or a border of a small plant bed that you have, you will get a great color show all summer long. All right, so finally I want to talk about this last plant called the lemon coral sedum, and it is a sedum, and it is mainly meant for borders. You can plant them in containers, and they want a lot of sun, and they're very drought tolerant, which is fantastic. So make sure you're putting them in a place that doesn't get waterlogged often, or your sprinklers are not over spraying them. But they're just a really nice green, bright color to add to any border or container, and they will spread a little bit but not too much, and I've never planted them before, so this will be the first year that I'm going to give them a go and see what happens. And just so you guys all know, these go down to a zone 7, so they obviously like heat. They go up to a zone 11B, so they obviously like heat, want a lot, and the spacing on them is pretty short, so you can space them 8 inches apart, and also very low maintenance, so no deadheading. They don't flower, but they do just provide a really nice soft green coloring to any planting that you have going on. So a good one to try for low maintenance also. The last thing I want to talk to you guys about was my delivery of dahlia tubers. So last October, I ordered a few tubers from Eden Brothers. And then earlier this year, I believe I ordered them in January, I put in my order from Swan Island Dahlias, which is local to where we are here in the Pacific Northwest. And just a tip, as you're getting towards the end of this year, start thinking about your dahlia garden for next year. Do you need to buy more tubers? Do you want to get some more variety in your garden? Different heights, different sizes of blooms. It's really best to put in your order as soon as you can in the fall and in the early part of the year, just to make sure that they have tubers available, and they won't ship them right away. They will wait until your appropriate zone to ship the tubers to you. For instance, I ordered these way back, some in October and some in January, and I just received them this week. So they know when to send them based on your zone, so don't worry about that, but just getting your order in is important. One of the best things about dahlias is that they do come in all shapes and sizes and colors, and anything you could potentially want for your garden. My parents, when they got married back in the 70s, my mom's bouquet was nothing but dahlias. I grew up with dahlias all my life. They were definitely more of the 70s variety colors than the popular colors of today, but I just love looking back on the history of where the popularity too has been in dahlias. Now you can just go crazy, which I sort of did this year, so we'll have to see where I plant them. On the table here, I did want to talk about how the dahlias come shipped to you in a couple different ways. So the bags that I have, this bag from Eden Brothers, for instance, is one way to ship. Swan Island, if you get individual tubers, will ship them in these individual bags. And then a lot of the other just individual one-off tubers were just in a box of dirt. So I kind of got all sorts of different varieties of packing and shipping when I got these this week. I do want to show the difference too of a tuber that you'll get from different growers. So this tuber right here is a cafe au lait dahlia, which are the well-known huge white blooms that are very popular in wedding bouquets and a lot of floral arrangements. This particular tuber came from Eden Brothers, and you can see how it's a little bit more natural looking, like it just came out of the ground. I have a couple tubers on this one piece that I can carefully dissect if I had the skill, but I'm just going to plop this in the ground right away. And that is in direct comparison to this tuber, which is the same dahlia, but it came from Swan Island. So Swan Island cleaned it up a little bit more. It's not as looking like it's just right out of the garden. And they put a stamp on it to tell you what the dahlia is. Both ways are 100% okay, and you will get the same result from both methods of preparing the tubers for delivery. So don't be worried if you get your tubers and they look a little bit different than you see on different videos out there. They're all gonna work the same way. When you do plant the tuber, however, so for this type that comes from Swan Island, you're gonna look for the eye of the tuber, and you're going to lay it horizontal with the eye facing up. On this tuber, because there's multiple attached into a central point, I'm going to plant it just like that, with this stalk pointing up. They kind of give you a handy guide to say, up, that's where it goes. So just be aware of what the tuber looks like when you go to plant it. So today I'm not going to go too much into what each of these dahlias is going to look like or what they do look like, but a couple things to think about when you are planting or buying, planting, planning for your dahlia garden, if you choose to create one, is that you want to look not only at the height and color of the dahlia plant, but you also want to look at the size of the bloom. So when you're ordering a dahlia or looking at different labels, it'll tell you the height of the plant, and then it'll also have the inches of the size of the bloom. My rule of thumb is that I typically don't like any variety where the bloom is 5 inches or larger. And the reason being is that when they grow tall and they have those large blooms, they topple over. And you have to spend a lot of time trying to stake them up, and it's just not as showy in your garden. Now, if you're going to be growing these for cuttings, right after they bloom, and for more floral arrangements, maybe that's okay. But just personally for me, I try to keep it under the 5-inch bloom head size. With that said though, I did buy some cafe au lait dahlias, which are 8-inch blooms, and they're just massive, but I've always wanted to give it a try. So I'm going to put the effort in this year and see how it goes. Stock size as well. When you are looking at the dahlias to purchase, you will find that some of the stalks of the dahlia plants may be of a black variety. They may have darker leaves. They may not be as traditional dahlias as you're used to. Just be aware of that. There's a lot of varieties out there now, and a lot of awesome varieties that are great for containers. They're great for borders because they're on the smaller side. So just read the labels, plan a little bit, and you can just have the most awesome variety. If you like what you see here today, be sure to click the like and subscribe button, and if you want to be notified of new episodes, click the bell.